Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. As you can see by the title of the video, I will be doing a tier list of all the presidents. With S of course being the best and F obviously being the worst. Um, Before we begin, I'd like to apologize and say that I apologize that I haven't posted in a while. It's been busy with a lot of other stuff, and I hope to be more active on the channel. And well, without further ado, let's get into it. So obviously, first off, we have George Washington, father of the country. Obviously, S tier, Revolutionary War hero, set the precedent for all the other presidents, and just, obviously, you see him everywhere. You learn about him from a very young age. You see him on the quarter, the $1 bill. He's everywhere. So obviously, he's the man. If America was a person, he'd be the person. So obviously, S tier. Moving on, we have John Adams. Hear me out. I'm going to put him in C tier. Um, because to be honest, yes, he was a co-author of the Declaration of Independence, but in his presidency, he did not really leave an impact. His presidency was faced with several controversies, including the XYZ affair and the Alien and Sedition Acts, which really damaged his re-election campaign in 1800. So I'll give him C tier, even if he is one of the founding fathers. Moving on, we have Thomas Jefferson, A tier. He was the main author of the Declaration of Independence. Our third president bought the Louisiana Purchase and just he was a great guy. He served. I don't know. He was just like he served like pretty much a lot of things before he became president. See, he was vice president under John Adams, Secretary of State under George Washington. One time he was governor of Virginia, and I think I could get this wrong, but I think he was a French diplomat. But obviously, he left a very big impact on the nation. So obviously, A tier. Moving on, we have James Madison. Ironically, he's actually the shortest president at 5'4". Just a fun little fact. I'm going to put him in B tier. He was the main author of the Constitution. Um, and he was Secretary of State under Thomas Jefferson's presidency. He had a great pre-presidency, but his presidency was kind of, you know, destroyed by the War of 1812, the burning of the White House. But other than that, pre-presidency, he was a really great guy, and just he's the reason our country works the way it does today. So with that, we're gonna put him in B tier. Moving on, we have James Monroe, the president who was president in the era of the good feelings. Nothing really happened under his presidency. Nothing bad. It was just laid back. Um, so I'm gonna give him B tier. Um, he doesn't get remembered as much as he should, but hey, he was a great guy. Another founding father. Moving on, we have John Quincy Adams, uh, the son of former President John Adams, and I'm gonna go ahead and put him in C tier. He really didn't do anything either, and but of course, there was the controversial 1824 election. Um, Everybody was debating, no, John Quincy Adams won, and no, Andrew Jackson won. But 1824, John Quincy Adams won, but he didn't really do anything. And I mean, I'm sure he did some things, but just nothing from what I can really recall under his presidency. Moving on, we have Andrew Jackson, the seventh president. So he was a very controversial figure for many things, such as the Indian Removal Act, destroying the Second Bank of America. He was a populist, and he campaigned himself as a common man. Um, he was well, if you were to ask me, I think he's the most terrifying man ever elected president. He's not good, but he's not bad. He's just look. 50% will argue that he was one of the worst presidents we ever had. Some would call him a dictator. People who opposed him called him King Andrew just because of the way he ruled. Some will say he just left a very important impact. There's There's a lot of cities out there named after him. I mean, you look at Jacksonville, Florida, but but let's also not forget he was a war hero in the War of 1812. So you got that going on too. Anyways, moving on, we have Martin Van Buren. I'm gonna put him in C tier. If you know anything about the Panic of 1837, that's why he lost re-election in, I believe it was 1840. Um, to, but I don't know, he was just very mediocre. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about him. Moving on, we have William Henry Harrison. Um, I'm sure all of you know him as the president who died. Like 31 days, I believe it was, into his term. He had the longest inaugural speech, and it was like a cold, wet, rainy day. So that's how he like died from pneumonia about a month later. Um, I can't really judge him. He didn't really. He was only there for a month. I mean, he didn't really do anything. But I'll put him in D tier. I'm not saying he was good. I'm not saying he's bad. He was just can't really be determined. Which leaves us to John Tyler. Um, Probably one of the worst presidents. Um, yeah. Um, so I'm gonna put them in D tier. I'm sure most of you, unless you're like a history nerd, myself included, have never really heard of him. He's one of the what would many consider the mediocre presidents. He was a vice president under Harrison and assumed the presidency, of course, when Harrison died. Um, and then he lost re-election to James K. Polk. All right. Now some of you may be asking, oh, who's this guy? James K. Polk. He doesn't get enough credit for what he does. So he served from 1845 to 1849. He was originally the governor of Tennessee. He was actually a dark horse candidate in the 1844 election, and a lot of people were just like, "Wow, he actually won." But what a lot of people don't credit him for is that he expanded the nation. That's how we got territories like Texas, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, you name it. Very influential. He promised he'd only serve one term, and that's what he did. Interestingly enough, he actually died 3 months after his presidency. The more you know. But he's just really, really significant, and I'd recommend doing some research on him if you haven't heard about him in just whenever you get the chance. Moving on, we got what's his name? Zachary Taylor. He died a year into office. He didn't really do anything. He was there from 49 to 50, so he just died a year into his office. And there's really, just like Harrison, there's really not a lot I can say about him. He's not really well remembered, but it is what it is. Moving on, we have Millard Fillmore. It's gonna be our first F president. Um, yeah, he was just I don't really got time to explain it, but do your own research on him, and then you can find out what yeah, he's just he's widely remembered as one of the worst, and I can agree with that. But moving on, we have Franklin Pierce, also an F tier. So I believe he's the one who signed the Fugitive Slave Act. Yeah, he was just yeah, definitely one of the worst. Again, another mediocre one. Which we're about to get out of. And that brings us to James Buchanan, the absolute worst president in history. He kind of let the nation fall apart, and like which brought us into the Civil War. Um, he did not seek re-election in 1860 just because he was that bad. Um, so that's that. He's widely remembered as the worst. You may have briefly heard about him just for being the worst. And that's really all there is to say about him. He was just bad. And now moving on, the man you all know and love, Abraham Lincoln, S tier. One of the best. One of, if not the best. He saved the country in the Civil War. He saved the United States in the Civil War. Abolished slavery, and was just a very poetic man. You just you just really have to like dig deeper. And he he once said, I believe um, it was sometime in the late 1830s. If destruction be our lot, we ourselves must be the authors and finishers, which I still really feel holds up today for various reasons. But obviously, the best sucks that he was assassinated in 1865. He was on a second term. He won re-election in 1864, but even though um, even though his second term was cut short by the assassination, we still remember him as one of the greatest presidents. But of course, followed by every great president, presumably has one of the worst presidents. Andrew Johnson, the first president to be impeached. He was a very racist man. He was Lincoln's second vice president. And of course, like what happens with any other vice president when a president dies, he assumed the presidency. He was the first to be impeached. Um, and of course, there's really all I'll say about him. He was just he was just that. That's all I'm gonna say for now. Moving on, we have Ulysses S. Grant. Um, oh, lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry. Civil War general, turned president. He was definitely one of the best. I mean, a lot of people, I don't know why, but for some time, a lot of people didn't really like him. Like, but like more as more stuff finds out, they're like, hey, I like this dude. So I gotta give him B tier. Um, really great guy. Moving on, we have Rutherford B. Hayes. Now, of course, he's not remembered like a lot of the others, but he doesn't get enough credit because he ended segregation. No, he ended Reconstruction. So sorry. He ended Reconstruction. So yeah, he was just that's really all he did. But I mean, hey, he was still a great, still pretty good, but not that's just not really remembered. Served one term, and then yeah, moved on. We have James Garfield. He died about 6 months into his presidency because he was assassinated. Um, so, of course, like any other assassinated president, he died too early. So I can't really say anything about him. He didn't really get the chance to do anything. So, moving on, we have Chester Arthur. Um, I bet a lot of you are like, who's that? Of course, he's president. He was the vice president under Garfield, and just assumed the presidency when Garfield died. So there's really I don't really remember a lot about this dude if I'm being honest. I'm not gonna hate on him and I'm not gonna love on him, so I'm gonna put him in D tier. Yeah, that's that. And moving on, we have Grover Cleveland. Um, he was the first and only president up until 2025 to serve two non-consecutive terms. Um, he was really interesting guy. Um, I can't really remember a lot that he did, but I mean, I'm sure he did some pretty good things. So, feeling generous today, so I'm gonna give him B. That's that. Moving on, we have the grandson of William Henry Harrison, the president who I said died 30 days into his term. Um, he became president for himself. Forgot what year it was. Um, yeah, there wasn't a lot, too much that he did. Um, so I'm gonna give him C tier. I'm sure he did something with the Navy, from what I recall, but yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think I'm gonna give him C tier. There's not really a lot I can remember about him, but yeah, C tier. That's what I'll give him. Moving on, we have one of the more underrated presidents, William McKinley. Um, Now, in case you guys haven't heard about old William McKinley, uh, he's the reason like we expanded. We got like places like I believe it was like Hawaii, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, which we gave up eventually. Yeah, he was a really great guy, and he was like I guess you could call him like a great crusader in a way. Um, but well, in what year was it? 1900, he was reelected, and in September 1901. His second term was cut short. Um, he was assassinated, and yeah, it was just really devastating, honestly. And so I'm gonna give him B tier. He's really underrated. Does not get enough credit for what he did. So yeah, hopefully, maybe he'll be like a maybe his legacy will be remembered like Grant's. Wasn't really remembered, but started coming back in the spotlight, and they were like, "Hey, I like this guy." So maybe that's what'll happen with him. Moving on, we have Theodore Roosevelt. Obviously S tier because he was the Rough Rider himself, um, former governor of New York and vice president under McKinley's second term. But he established the national parks, built the Panama Canal, did a lot of influential stuff. He was an environmentalist, and that's even more greater. I think he's probably one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. Definitely in my top 10. And yeah, that's all there is to say about old Teddy. Um, Also, not to mention the fact that he had like a menagerie of pets in the White House, so that was pretty fun. Moving on, we have William Howard Taft. Um, I'm he was the I'm not gonna say fattest. That's just rude, but he was like the heaviest president served after Roosevelt. Um, I don't really remember too much about him, but I don't know. He was just a decent guy. Nothing too bad about him. Nothing. But after his presidency, he did serve as a Supreme Court justice, from what I remember. So the more you know. Moving on, we have Woodrow Wilson, and he's very complicated. Uh, Now about old Woodrow, how do I put this? Um, yes, he led us through World War One, and he gave women the right to vote, which were both great things. But recently, there have been some things that have come up, and apparently, he was a very racist man, which just really leaves me baffled on where to put him. B or C? I mean, World War One women's rights, that's good. Of course, Treaty of Versailles, I probably pronounced that wrong. I'm sorry. That kind of failed, but look, I don't want to upset some people, but I also don't want to upset some people. So I'm gonna put him in C. Yeah, right before complicated man. So yeah, that's all there is to say about him. Warren Harding. Um, he served until his death, but he was really popular at the time. But his presidency had some scandals that weren't discovered until like after his death. So many of these were like the teapot scandal or something like that. So yeah, that I'm just gonna put him. I'm put him there for now. Um, I mean, of course, not the worst president, but one of them. Moving on, we have Calvin Coolidge. He was the vice president under what's his name, Harding. Um, and of course became president in I think it was 1923 when old Harding died. That voice track was awful. I'm sorry about that. there's nothing to really hate about him, honestly. They called him Silent Cal. He was the quietest president. He wasn't bad. There was just, I mean, he was president during the war in 20, so he's not bad, but he's just a really interesting dude. Um, he did not seek re-election in 1928. And yeah, he was a very quiet man, and there's really nothing to hate about him. So yeah, I'll put him there. Moving on, we have Herbert Hoover, which I'm already gonna give that tier to. In case you all forgot, Hoover was the one who basically let the country spiral into the Great Depression, um, which made him lose re-election in 1932 to Roosevelt. Um, Definitely one of the worst. And I'm pretty sure he actually lived a while even after his presidency. I believe he died on October 20th, 1964. Um, I might be wrong, but it was somewhere around then. Um, but yeah, he's not one of the greatest. He's the reason the Great Depression started, and yeah, that's how it all came to be. And that brings us to the next president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Now, unfortunately, I can't. Where'd he go? There we go. I can't put everybody in the S tier, so I have to put him. I have to put him in A tier. Um, well, he was just great. Saved the country in the Great Depression, and he's the one who led us through World War II. Of course, we remember him for a lot of different reasons. Of course, I know some of his acts were controversial, like the Japanese internment camps, but I'm not gonna spend a lot of time discussing that. Um, yeah, but he served from 33 to 45 when he died just a few months before World War II ended, actually. Um, so we never really got to see the end of the war. Um, but he was just really great. Um, just led us through World War II, and we still remember some of his iconic quotes, like "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." So there you go. Moving on, we have Mr. Give 'em Hell Harry himself, Harry S. Truman. Um, I'm gonna give him A tier too. Really great. Of course, he made a controversial act by dropping the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II. They were both a good and a bad thing. Yes, it got Japan to surrender, and we didn't have to fully invade Japan. Um, but at the same time, the nuclear weapons, those were just weapons that would later lead to mass destruction, and we still don't know their shape today. Let's just hope we never have another war where nuclear weapons of any type are used. So I'll give him an A tier. He also re-renovated the White House when it was on the verge of collapsing, actually. So yeah, really great dude. Moving on, we have Dwight D. Eisenhower, and I'm gonna give him A tier too. Wow, we have a lot of good A tier presidents. Um, so he was the Allied general in World War II. Um, Basically, when Truman's term was coming to an end, they were like, "Well, who's going to be president now?" Then everybody was like, "Hey, let's get Dwight D. Eisenhower to run." And yeah, Eisenhower was elected president in 1952 and served from 53 to 61. He established the highways and the roads, all that good stuff, and yeah, he was just really great guy. He remained very neutral uh, on like what was happening around the world. That's like when the Cold War was kind of like starting and whatnot. But yeah, he kind of what do I say? Just kind of remained neutral on everything. So that's really good. So I'm gonna give him A tier. Moving on, we have John F. Kennedy. Um, Great president. he's one of those what if presidents because, as unfortunately as we all know, he was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. He did a lot of great things. There was a Bay of Pigs invasion and the uh, Cuban Missile Crisis he led us through. Um, he did a lot to he acted on civil rights. And yeah, he was just really great. And it truly does suck that he was unfortunately assassinated. Um, like he had great potential. He had a long potential. Um, really, the only bad thing I can recall that he did is, well, now, in case you're unaware, he had at least 20 to 30 affairs. Um, More affairs than Bill Clinton could ever scratch the surface of. Um, but still, I think he's a really great dude and just a really great president altogether. And ironically enough, he was actually the youngest president ever elected at age 43. So, pretty cool. Moving on, we have Lyndon Johnson, which I'm already going to give the C tier. Now, some of you might be raising eyebrows, but hear me out. He was good, but bad. Um, yes, he served after he was a vice president under Kennedy, and of course, as you all know, became the president after JFK was assassinated. Um, Now, I may be wondering why I put him in C tier, not say A tier or B tier. He kind of got us into Vietnam, which was kind of uncalled for. He's like the main reason we were really in that war, so there's that. But I mean, I'll give him credit on this. He did help. He did help out with civil rights, and yeah, he left office in 1969. So a complicated figure, but he was good in ways, but he was bad in ways, if that makes any sense. Moving on, we have Richard Nixon. Now, he was good, but bad. As you all know, Watergate. hmm Watergate is ultimately what damaged his legacy. Um, when the Watergate scandal happened, he was the only president to ever resign, resigning on August 9th, 1974. Um, but he had the moon landing happened under his presidency. A few months into it, from what I recall. Of course, I mean, I don't think he's the one who planned it all, but you get what I'm saying. And he opened China too, and I mean, if he didn't do those things, and he was just and all he did was the Watergate, he would have been down here with the F presidents. But I'll balance him out. I'll put him in C tier. If I'll say this, if Watergate never happened, I still think he'd definitely be in the top 15. So, moving on, we have Gerald Ford, Nixon's second vice president, um, who became president in 1974 after Nixon resigned. Um, he didn't do a whole lot. He was actually America's only president never elected because he was never elected as president or president. So that's a really interesting piece of history. He didn't do too much, but yeah. He was there for a while and well, not a while, 2.5 years, because even though he tried to run for president in 1976. He lost to Jimmy Carter, the oldest living president that there ever was. Wow, we have a lot of C tier presidents. Now hear me out. He was a great man, great dude. He actually lived the longest. He died uh, December 29th, 2024, at the age of 100. Um, he was a Look. His presidency was definitely not definitely not the greatest. Um, It was faced by the Iranian hostage crisis, and but like his post presidency, it's awesome. I mean, you gotta do some research on it because it's just really good what he did. But he's the president to have died the most recently, and the oldest ever living president, living to be the age of 100. So that's pretty cool. And his successor, Ronald Reagan. Y'all knew he was coming. S tier. I still remember him as one of the greatest presidents. He was president during the 1980s. He was hugely popular at that time, won on a landslide both times. Um, just to give you an example, 1984, he won. I forgot like how many numbers he had, but it was over 500 something. And his opponent, Walter Mondale, only got 13 electoral votes, only winning his home state of Minnesota and Washington D.C. And just Reagan was super popular at the time. He's the reason we kind of got out of the Cold War. Um, and of course, I'm sure y'all remember the Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. He had a great sense of humor. Before he was president, he was governor of California. And he was also an actor, so that just really shows you like how lucky he was. He was he was a Hollywood actor at the beginning, turned governor of California, and eventually ran for president in 1980 and won. Um, and so he was doing so well. 1988, his vice president George H.W. Bush decided to run for president and won. Um, I'm gonna put him in B tier. George H.W. Bush. Now, of course, remember the read my lips thing. He said he would kind of cut taxes, but taxes were kind of raised, which kind of led to his defeat in 1992. But on the other hand, he did sign the American with Disabilities Act, which is still very influential today. So even though he was a one-term president, I still think he was pretty decent, pretty decent. And that brings us to the next president, Bill Clinton, um, president from 1993 to 2001. Um, I think I'm gonna give him B tier. During his presidency, the economy was great. Crime levels were low. Things were just going good. Up until 1998. As I'm sure you all know, the Monica Lewinsky scandal. He was the second president to be impeached. Even though he was never fully removed from office. Well, um, but yeah, even after this, when he left office in 2001, he was still widely popular. He was he's definitely more moderate. Because as you all know, um, he's a Democrat, and I agree with the idea of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats. And yeah, Bill Clinton was just a moderate Democrat, and I don't think he's as bad as some of the ones down here, but hey, he was pretty decent for what he did. Um, so yeah, pretty cool. Moving on, we have George W. Bush. W. Um, oh, oh no, get back here, Johnson. Uh, George W. Bush from 2001 2009. Uh, son of former President George H.W. Bush. 1 second. There we go. Um, he was governor of Texas from 1995 until he was elected president. He was widely popular, and the GOP was like, "Hey, we need to get this man into the presidency." So he won the very controversial 2000 election. I'll have to make another video on that because it'd take about another 10 minutes to explain. And um, yeah. Well, anyways, he was widely popular in his first term. He led the country through the September 11th attacks, and won the election of 2004, not just securing the electoral votes, but also the popular votes, which is actually something that's pretty hard to do for a Republican president. So there's that. But the reason I'm putting him so low is in a second term, he faced controversies. You look at the Iraq War, Hurricane Katrina, and the economic crisis of 2008, which just really damaged his legacy. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that, and that's where we're gonna put him. Next, we have Barack Obama. I'm trying to keep this as nonpartisan as possible, and I'm going to explain. Yes, we're putting him in C tier. No, don't. Just hear me out. Hear me out. He was a very charismatic guy. Had a great sense of humor, but his strikes in places were just pretty bad. I mean, you think about like, I believe it was like Syria and stuff he striked. But no. What I want to mainly talk about is Obamacare. On paper, it sounds like a good idea, but I mean, I believe healthcare should be affordable for all. But at the end of the day, you've got to think about how this is going to impact doctors, nurses, surgeons, scientists, anyone who works in the medical field. Um, so I'll leave it at that. Not good, not bad, just. But I mean, hey, he was the first African American president. I mean, that's pretty historical though. But yeah, moving up, we have Donald Trump. Uh, okay, look. Hear me out. I'm gonna put him in B tier. Um, just listen. Yes, he was a little more far. He's our current president still, as of 2026. Keep that in mind. Um, the only president, like I was previously discussing Grover Cleveland earlier, Trump won the 2024 election, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris. And yeah, he got a non-consecutive term. So pretty interesting. But I'll say this too. Um, he's more out there from the moderate Republicans, which gave us MAGA, Make America Great Again, and whatnot. Um, but I'll say this too. Look, I endorse him in 2024, but I'm gonna say this too. His public speaking is just bad. I mean, half the words you hear him say makes you think like that stuff you'd hear like in a bar or something. Um, like I don't know. I'll say this too. Obama did have more better public speaking skills than him. No offense to Trump, of course. But I mean, of course, he's the man we need right now. He's cutting taxes, securing the border. Um, but I'll say this too. I think his second term, which we're currently in, is going better than his first term. Um, I don't really got anything to say on. Yeah, he's just. But yeah, sometimes he does run his mouth a little too much, and that's really the only thing I can go wrong with him. Um, so yeah, I'll put him at that. Moving on, we have Joe Biden. As you all know, he was our former president, um, and that's why we're putting him down here in the F tier. It's not partisan, but like, hear me out. He was too old to assume the office, and in his term, he promised things were going to go great. Um, but think about it: inflation was bad. Um, the economy was starting to slip. There was an invasion at the southern border. Um, no, he was just. I mean, I'm kind of proud of him that he dropped out in 20 in the 2024 election. I honestly, hear me out. I feel bad for the man. Everyone like forced him into the presidency, and At the same time, I don't think he really wanted to be there. And yeah, but yeah, as you all know, in the first 2024 presidential debate, go watch that for yourself because it wasn't pretty. I'll leave it at that. But so there we go. All 45 presidents tier list from the top all the way to the bottom. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope to see you all back next time, and be sure to like, subscribe, tell me what you think in the comments. I'll be back with a video pretty soon, and thanks for watching. See you, stay safe, and goodbye.